Most people believe they are living their own life, but if you look closely, you will realize something surprising. Most people are not thinking for themselves at all. They are simply repeating ideas they heard from others. They follow what society tells them is important. They chase what everyone else is chasing. They fear what everyone else fears. From childhood, we are taught what to believe, what success should look like, and what kind of life we are supposed to live. Schools teach us how to follow instructions. Society teaches us how to fit in. Social media tells us what we should want and how we should behave. Slowly, without realizing it, many people lose the ability to think independently. They begin to measure their worth by other people's opinions. They make decisions based on approval. They compare their lives constantly with others. And the result is a life that feels controlled by external voices instead of internal clarity. Stoic philosophers recognized this problem thousands of years ago. They believed that one of the most powerful things a human being can do is to learn how to think independently, not emotionally, not impulsively, but rationally and clearly. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful leaders in history, constantly reminded himself to question his own thoughts and avoid being controlled by public opinion. Even though he ruled the Roman Empire, he knew that true freedom did not come from power or wealth. True freedom came from owning your mind. When you start thinking for yourself, something remarkable happens. You stop being easily manipulated by trends and opinions. You stop following the crowd blindly. You stop making decisions based on fear of judgment. Instead, you begin making choices based on logic, values, and personal responsibility. This is the foundation of Stoic philosophy. Stoicism teaches that a strong mind is not controlled by outside noise. It is guided by reason and self-awareness. When you develop this ability, you begin to reclaim control over your life. Your actions become intentional. Your goals become meaningful. Your identity becomes stable. You are no longer living according to someone else's expectations. You are living according to your own understanding. In a world full of constant opinions, distractions, and social pressure, learning to think for yourself becomes one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Because the moment you stop letting others control your thinking, you start taking back control of your life. And that is exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches. In this video, we will explore powerful Stoic principles that will help you break free from external influence, develop independent thinking, and take full responsibility for the direction of your life. Because the truth is simple. When you finally start thinking for yourself, everything begins to change. Most people believe they are thinking for themselves. They feel that their opinions are original, their decisions are independent, and their life choices are completely their own. But if you observe carefully, you begin to notice something surprising. A large number of people are simply repeating what they have been told to believe. Their goals, their fears, their definition of success, and even their lifestyle choices are often shaped by external voices. Family expectations, social pressure, cultural norms, and the constant noise of the internet quietly influence the way they think. Over time, this influence becomes so strong that people stop questioning it. They accept certain ideas as truth simply because everyone around them believes the same thing. Stoic philosophy warned about this danger long before the modern world existed. The Stoics believed that one of the greatest threats to personal freedom is not physical control, but mental conformity. When people stop thinking independently and start copying the beliefs of the crowd, they slowly lose control over their own life. They may appear successful on the outside, but internally they feel confused, restless, and disconnected from themselves. This is because a life built on borrowed ideas can never feel fully authentic. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this struggle constantly in his private journal. Even though he was the emperor of Rome and surrounded by advisors, philosophers, and public opinions, he reminded himself every day to examine his own thoughts carefully. He understood that just because many people believe something does not mean it is correct. Crowds can be wrong, public opinion can be unstable, trends change constantly, but reason, clarity, and self-awareness remain stable. When a person learns to think independently, they begin to observe the world differently. Instead of automatically accepting popular opinions, they pause and examine them. They ask themselves important questions. Is this belief actually true? Or have I simply accepted it because everyone else believes it? Is this goal something I genuinely want? Or is it something society taught me to chase? Is this fear real? Or is it something I inherited from other people's worries? These questions are powerful because they break the automatic patterns of thinking that most people live with. Once you begin questioning your assumptions, you start noticing how many of your beliefs were never truly your own. Many people chase careers they do not enjoy because society defines those careers as successful. Many people buy things they do not need because they believe material possessions create status. Many people stay trapped in lifestyles that make them unhappy simply because they are afraid of being judged. All of this happens when individuals stop thinking independently and start following the crowd. The Stoics believed that real freedom begins the moment you reclaim control over your thinking. When your mind becomes independent, your decisions become intentional. You no longer chase approval. You no longer shape your identity around external expectations. Instead, you begin living according to principles that make sense to you. This shift may feel uncomfortable at first. Thinking independently often means standing apart from the crowd. It means accepting that not everyone will agree with your choices. It means being comfortable with uncertainty while you develop your own understanding. But this discomfort is temporary. The reward is something far more valuable: clarity. When your thinking becomes your own, your life begins to align with your true values. You stop wasting energy trying to please everyone. You stop chasing things that do not truly matter to you. You start focusing on what genuinely improves your character and your life. Stoic philosophy teaches that a disciplined mind is the foundation of a meaningful life. If your thoughts are controlled by others, your life will also be controlled by others. But when you train your mind to think clearly and independently, you reclaim your personal authority. You begin making decisions based on reason instead of pressure. You stop reacting blindly to trends, opinions, and social expectations. And slowly, you start shaping a life that is truly your own. This is the first step toward taking back control. Not by fighting the world around you, but by strengthening the mind within you. Because once your thinking becomes independent, the influence of the crowd begins to lose its power over you. And when that happens, a new kind of freedom appears. The freedom to live according to your own understanding. When you begin thinking for yourself, the first thing you notice is how strongly the world tries to pull you back into conformity. Society rewards people who follow the crowd. It feels safer to agree with popular opinions, to repeat what others believe, and to avoid questioning the system around you. Because of this, many people unconsciously choose comfort over clarity. They would rather follow familiar ideas than face the uncertainty that comes with independent thinking. But Stoic philosophy teaches that comfort is not the goal of life. The goal is wisdom and self-mastery. And wisdom requires courage. The courage to question beliefs. The courage to think differently. The courage to accept that the majority is not always right. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, explained that people are not disturbed by events themselves, but by the judgments they attach to those events. Most of those judgments are inherited from society. For example, many people believe that success means earning a large amount of money, gaining social recognition, or achieving a certain status. But these ideas are rarely examined. They are simply When someone begins to question them, something interesting happens. They start realizing that many of their desires were never truly their own. They wanted approval because they were taught that approval equals worth. They feared failure because society treats failure as humiliation. They chased status because they were told that status defines success. But when you begin thinking independently, you start separating truth from assumption. You begin asking yourself deeper questions. What does success actually mean to me? What kind of life would truly bring peace and meaning? What values do I want to live by, regardless of public opinion? These questions shift your perspective dramatically. Instead of living reactively, you begin living deliberately. Instead of copying the path of others, you start designing your own path based on reason and reflection. This is exactly what Stoicism encourages. The Stoics believed that a wise person does not blindly imitate the crowd. Instead, they observe the world carefully and decide which ideas deserve acceptance and which ones should be rejected. This process requires self-awareness. Self-awareness means stepping back from your thoughts and examining them objectively. Instead of immediately believing every thought that appears in your mind, you learn to analyze it. Is this belief rational? Is this fear logical? Is this goal truly meaningful? When you practice this regularly, your thinking becomes sharper and more disciplined. You stop being easily influenced by trends and emotional reactions. You become more thoughtful in your decisions. You begin acting according to principles rather than impulses. And this kind of thinking creates stability. Many people feel lost because their identity depends on external validation. When others approve of them, they feel confident. When others criticize them, they feel uncertain. But a Stoic mind does not depend on approval. A Stoic evaluates themselves through reason and personal values, rather than public opinion. This independence creates a powerful sense of inner control. You no longer feel the constant need to compare yourself to others. You no longer feel pressured to follow trends simply because everyone else is doing it. Instead, you focus on what truly matters, developing character, wisdom, and discipline. Ironically, when you stop seeking approval, people often respect you more. Why? Because independent thinkers appear grounded and confident. They are not easily manipulated by pressure or trends. Their decisions come from reflection rather than imitation. This kind of presence stands out in a world where most people are constantly influenced by external noise. But the most important change happens internally. When you begin thinking for yourself, you reclaim ownership of your life. Your decisions become your responsibility. Your direction becomes your choice. Your beliefs become the result of careful reasoning rather than social conditioning. And this is where real control begins. Not through power over others, but through power over your own mind. Because the moment you stop allowing society to think for you, you begin discovering something much more valuable, your own understanding. And once you start trusting your own reasoning, the path of your life begins to change in ways you never expected. Once you begin thinking for yourself, another important change starts to happen. You begin noticing how much of the world is driven by noise rather than truth. Every day, people are surrounded by opinions, social media, news, trends, influencers, and public figures constantly tell others what they should believe, what they should value, and how they should live. Because of this constant flow of information, many people rarely stop to examine what they are absorbing. They react quickly, they adopt opinions instantly, they repeat ideas without questioning them. Stoic philosophy teaches that this kind of mental chaos weakens the mind. A disciplined thinker does not immediately react to everything they hear. Instead, they slow down and examine ideas carefully. They separate emotion from reason. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. Despite being surrounded by political pressure and public expectations, he trained himself to observe situations calmly before forming judgments. He believed that clarity of thought requires distance from unnecessary noise. This lesson is extremely important today. Modern life pushes people to consume endless information. But more information does not always create more wisdom. Sometimes it simply creates confusion. When the mind is constantly reacting to outside voices, it loses its ability to think clearly. That is why Stoicism emphasizes mental discipline. Mental discipline means choosing carefully what influences your thinking. It means not allowing every opinion to enter your mind unchecked. It means learning how to pause before reacting. When you develop this habit, you begin protecting your mind from manipulation. You stop believing something simply because it is popular. You stop accepting ideas just because they are repeated frequently. Instead, you examine them through reason. This process strengthens your independence. For example, when you hear an opinion, you begin asking yourself simple but powerful questions. Is this idea logical? Is this belief supported by evidence? Does this opinion align with my values and understanding? These questions help filter truth from noise. Without this kind of thinking, people become mentally dependent on the crowd. Their opinions change every time public trends change. Their emotions fluctuate depending on what others say. But an independent thinker remains steady. Their beliefs are not shaped by temporary trends. They are shaped by reflection and careful reasoning. This stability creates confidence. A person who knows how to think independently does not feel threatened by disagreement. They understand that different perspectives exist, and they evaluate them calmly rather than reacting emotionally. This ability is rare. Many people defend their beliefs aggressively because they are afraid of questioning them. But someone who has developed independent thinking welcomes thoughtful discussion. They are not attached to being right. They are attached to understanding the truth. And this mindset leads to continuous growth. Stoicism encourages this kind of intellectual humility. The Stoics believed that wisdom is not about believing you know everything. It is about being willing to examine your thoughts and improve your understanding over time. When you adopt this attitude, your mind becomes flexible yet disciplined. You are open to learning, but you are not easily controlled. You listen to others, but you do not surrender your judgment. You observe the world, but you maintain control over your thinking. This balance creates mental strength. As your thinking becomes clearer, your decisions become wiser. You start noticing patterns in life that many people miss. You begin seeing through manipulation, trends, and emotional exaggerations. And slowly the influence of the crowd fades. Instead of reacting to every voice around you, you become guided by your own reasoning. This does not isolate you from the world. It simply frees you from being controlled by it. Because when your thinking becomes disciplined and independent, you are no longer drifting wherever public opinion moves. You are steering your life intentionally. And that is when real personal control begins to appear. As you continue developing the ability to think for yourself, another powerful transformation begins to take place. You start becoming less emotionally controlled by the opinions of others. For many people, their emotional state is deeply connected to how others see them. A compliment makes them feel confident. A criticism makes them doubt themselves. A negative comment can stay in their mind for hours or even days. This happens because their identity depends heavily on external approval. Stoic philosophy challenges this dependence directly. The Stoics believe that a person's worth should not be determined by public opinion. Instead, it should be determined by character, reason, and integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the opinion of others is something we cannot control. People will always judge, criticize, praise, or misunderstand. Their views are influenced by their own experiences, emotions, and biases. Because of this, building your identity around the opinions of others creates instability. When people praise you, you feel strong. When they criticize you, you feel weak. Your confidence rises and falls depending on the reactions of the crowd, but when you begin thinking independently, this cycle starts to break. You stop measuring yourself through the constantly changing opinions of others. Instead, you begin measuring yourself through your own standards. You ask different questions. Did I act with integrity today? Did I make decisions based on reason rather than fear? Did I stay true to my principles even when it was difficult? These questions create internal stability. Your self-respect becomes based on your behavior rather than on public approval. This is one of the most powerful shifts Stoicism offers. When your confidence comes from your own reasoning and character, it becomes extremely difficult for others to disturb your peace. Criticism no longer feels like an attack on your identity. Instead, it becomes information you can examine calmly. If the criticism is useful, you learn from it. If it is unfair or emotional, you simply let it pass. Either way, your mind remains balanced. This kind of emotional independence creates a quiet form of strength. People who depend on approval are easily manipulated. They change their behavior to please others. They adjust their beliefs to fit in. They hesitate to speak honestly because they fear rejection. But someone who thinks independently behaves differently. They are respectful, but they are not submissive to public pressure. They listen to others, but they do not surrender their judgment. Their confidence does not come from being praised. It comes from knowing they are living according to reason and personal values. This makes them calmer, more stable, and more trustworthy. Ironically, this independence often earns more respect than constant approval seeking ever could. People sense authenticity. They notice when someone is not constantly trying to impress others. A person who acts according to clear principles appears grounded and reliable. And reliability is rare. In a world where many people change their opinions based on trends and social pressure, someone who thinks independently stands out naturally. But the greatest benefit of this mindset is internal. When you stop allowing the opinions of others to control your emotions, you reclaim a large amount of mental energy. You no longer waste time overthinking every comment or judgment. Your mind becomes quieter and more focused, and that quiet focus allows you to direct your attention toward what truly matters. Your growth, your discipline, your values, your direction in life. This is why Stoic philosophy places such importance on independent thinking. Because once your identity is grounded in reason rather than approval, you gain a level of inner freedom that many people never experience. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are living intentionally within it. And that is where real control over your life begins to appear. When you truly begin thinking for yourself, the final transformation is this. You stop living your life by accident, and you start living it by design. Most people move through life reactively. They respond to circumstances as they appear, follow opportunities that seem popular, and allow external pressure to shape their decisions. Because of this, their life often feels like a series of reactions rather than a clear direction. They go where the crowd goes. They believe what others believe. They chase what everyone else is chasing. Years pass, and many people suddenly realize they have been living a life that was never truly chosen by them. Stoic philosophy encourages the opposite approach. Instead of drifting through life, the Stoics believed in living deliberately. This means choosing your direction carefully and aligning your actions with clear principles. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that every day was an opportunity to act according to reason. He believed that a meaningful life does not happen automatically. It requires awareness and intentional choices. When you begin thinking independently, you start asking deeper questions about your life. What kind of person do I want to become? What values do I want to live by? What kind of work gives my life meaning? What kind of habits will lead me toward a better future? These questions help you move from reaction to intention. Instead of following whatever path society offers, you begin shaping your own path based on reflection and understanding. This does not mean life becomes easy. Independent thinking often requires patience and courage. You may take a path that others do not understand. You may make choices that go against social expectations, but these decisions become easier when you are guided by reason rather than fear. Stoicism teaches that a meaningful life is not defined by wealth, status, or popularity. It is defined by the quality of your character and the wisdom of your choices. When you focus on developing these qualities, your life begins to feel more stable and purposeful. Your goals become clearer because they are based on genuine values rather than external pressure. Your habits become stronger because they are chosen intentionally rather than copied from others. And most importantly, your sense of identity becomes stronger. You no longer feel lost in comparison with others. You no longer feel pressured to follow trends that do not align with your values. Instead, you begin walking a path that makes sense to you. Over time, this kind of living builds confidence, not the loud confidence that seeks attention, but a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are responsible for your own life. This is the freedom Stoic philosophers spoke about. Freedom does not mean doing whatever you want without discipline. True freedom means controlling your own mind and directing your life according to reason. When you achieve this, external circumstances lose much of their power over you. You are not easily distracted by trends. You are not easily shaken by criticism. You are not easily influenced by the expectations of others. You become steady, and a steady mind is one of the most powerful things a person can develop. The moment you begin thinking for yourself, your life begins to change because your decisions begin to change. You stop drifting, you start choosing, you stop copying, you start understanding, and slowly, through consistent awareness and disciplined thinking, you begin creating a life that truly belongs to you. This is the deeper message of Stoic philosophy. Control your thinking, and you will slowly regain control of your life. Because the moment you take ownership of your mind, you take ownership of your future.